And now it's time. I said and now I said it's time. And now for something completely machinima. And now for something completely machinima. And now for something almost entirely, very precisely, but just not exclusively, sort of adjacently, kind of approximately, complete machinima. And now for something completely machinima.
Hello, my name is Damien Valentine, and I'm here with my co-host Tracy Harwood.
Hello.
For another episode of Now for Something Complete Machinima. This week we're going to be discussing the news. Ricky and Phil are not joining us this week. I'm kind of suspicious by the timing of their absence and the re-release of Halo as a remake of the first game. So we'll see what happened there. And I'm sure Phil's going to kill me for saying that.
Indeed.
But like I said, we're going to be covering the news. So Tracy, why don't you tell us what you found first?
Sure. I've only got a couple of things. I've got some things to say about them, of course. I'm not sure you're going to like one of the things I'm going to talk about, but we'll give it a go anyway. In actual fact, though, you might love it. It's DramaMancer. The first thing I want to just touch on, something called DramaMancer. You might love it, or you might kind of think this is further evidence of human civilization reaching its natural conclusion, Damien. So, you decide. So DramaMancer, it kind of comes from the storytelling lab at Midjourney. It's not a conventional game development platform, but it's kind of described as an AI-powered game engine in the style of a visual novel. Although I think it's more accurately understood as a kind of experimental interactive storytelling platform. So it's not quite the same as some of these other sort of generative tools, really. It's not because the author, i.e. the person that puts their information into the platform itself, they are the ones that establish the narrative framework, and that means the style, the characters, the scenes, and the kind of important events. And then the player, the person that picks up the virtual book, if you like, or the digital book, can then basically respond in a sort of natural language way, rather than kind of selecting from different predetermined dialogue options, really. And what happens is the LLM interprets those actions and generates the next part of the story, whilst basically attempting to remain inside the original author's intended narrative world. And what I find interesting is that DramaMancer is, it's doing much more than using AI to write a story. It's using something called Storylets, and these are kind of small narrative units governed by conditions and outcomes. And the AI basically joins those authored elements together in a response to what the player does. So there is still an authored dramatic architecture underneath this kind of apparent freedom, but the AI is deciding how those elements should be realized moment to moment. Its researchers kind of explicitly describe the central challenge with it in its development as one of reconciling authorial intent with player agency. And the obvious attraction is that it kind of might remove even one of the great burdens really of branching narrative. If you're a writer, you'll no longer basically have to anticipate and manually author every conceivable route through the game. It kind of gives also players much greater expressive freedom. Instead of kind of clicking agree or refuse or attack, you can kind of describe what response you want to your character to take. But of course, that also raises the question of where authorship now sits. I think the human creates the possibility of space, the player supplies the intention, and this model performs the connective narrative labor between the two. And the question you got to ask then is who then has actually written the resulting playthrough of this game, this drama, as it kind of unfolds? I don't know, actually, when I think about it. My best guess is you've basically got something here that's in the end it's kind of co-created, co-produced, and co-consumed, co-prosumed, I think you might describe that as. Is that a term? I'm not sure. Um, Now, of course, there's going to be some reservations, which maybe, Damien, you're going to elaborate on in a minute. Um, I'll give you my thoughts about what those are. I mean, one of the things clearly is, does natural language freedom actually produce genuinely meaningful agency? Or is it merely giving you more elaborate illusions of choice? I don't know. Another thing I thought about is, can the system maintain character and, the causality of what you've written, or the tone and the dramatic pacing that you want over a sustained story? Again, I'm not sure. Um, will every response be accommodating? I mean, good drama often depends upon resistance and frustration and consequences, not simply just sort of letting a player kind of do whatever they like. So I guess that's another kind of interesting point that you might want to explore if you're going to have a go with this. And then another thing is, if the LLM generates the kind of connective material, will different stories begin to acquire a similar linguistic texture? I guess that's a distinct possibility. And I guess if we're thinking Midjourney-ish, that's not too far afield from thinking about everything being kind of teal and orange, maybe. I don't know. And then I suppose from our experience, the world of machinima, what happens when a player deliberately pushes against the author's intended boundaries? And I think that for me could probably be the most interesting aspect of this as a tool set. Now, the research team actually acknowledges these problems, and of course, it remains a sort of an experimental research system rather than a kind of finished replacement, even for Twine or an RPG Maker or any kind of conventional game engine, really. But I will put a link to the paper, and there's a link to launch it. In actual fact, I was going to give it a go myself just to see how this thing worked. But the day I went to do it, which was a few days after this paper hit my feed, unfortunately, it was offline. When I first looked at it, it was fine. There's quite a lot of games on it already. When I went to have a look at it, I was going to have a go at creating something offline. And I don't know whether that's because it's already got a heap of backlash, or it was just overrun with people trying to have a go with it. So, maybe demand. I think for machinima creators, I can imagine this becoming interesting when the kind of dynamically produced narrative is kind of connected to animated characters and environments. And at the moment, I think it's primarily just text and kind of selected imagery, but it points, I think, towards a system in which performers could improvise with AI-driven characters inside a kind of an authored story world, producing a different dramatic performance actually on every run through. I think that would make it a bit like directing improvisational theatre in a virtual environment, whether the AI is an actor or a dramaturg or, game master or an kind of unusually confident I don't know, autocomplete system of, I guess that's something we will debate over the coming months. I don't know if you had a chance to have a look at this, Damien, before we um, we came to today's session. Did you?
No, I didn't, but I'll say that just from listening to you describe it, it's not me at all that I'd want to use myself. So,
No.
which I'm sure is a huge shock to anyone who's listened to me talk about AI in previous news installments. So as you've been describing it, I've been trying to think about how this would apply to games, and I was thinking about games like Mass Effect, where um, there's an overall story, but it kind of branches and there's different ways through. And I was thinking about, some of the conversations that show up in the game, and sometimes, they'll give you different options of how to respond to this character that you're talking to, or some situation. And sometimes there is no option for what exactly you'd want to do. So this may do that. But I was also starting to think, well, how far will it go? Because you could take the decision using this if this kind of technology was in a game, you could take it in a direction so you keep choosing options that aren't necessarily what is going to drive the story forward, and gets to a point where it is actually now impossible to continue the story. So what would happen then? Would the game have to figure out a way to get back on track, or is it just going to stop? And there's another game. It wasn't really about stories. It's a strategy game where it's a very old strategy game called XCOM Terror from the Deep. And the idea is you control this organization and you have to stop an alien invasion. And the way you do that is you send your troops out on missions and you capture alien technology in the aliens themselves and you research them. And eventually you figure out where the aliens are coming from. And then you can launch a mission to go and blow it up. But there was a glitch in the game. This is the second game in the series. There's a glitch in it because they rushed it out and they never fixed it. If you research things in the wrong order, essential things you need to research to complete the game will not show up ever. So you cannot beat it. And the only way to do it is really, unless you're very lucky and just happen to research the correct things in the right order, is to find the proper research guide and just follow that, because people have put that online. Because in the first game, it didn't matter what order. You could research things in any order you wanted, and eventually it would lead you to the final clues to go off to defeat the aliens. But for some reason, they messed it up in the sequel, and it's not even an order that makes sense in context of the game. And you could, using something like this, I know that that's a very different situation, but unless this was done really well, you could find yourself in a situation where you've taken the story in a way that breaks the game and you can't finish it.
Very, very likely. I would say that's a distinct outcome of this, and maybe that's the point.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've got to, when I do eventually get back into it, if indeed it comes back online, there were quite a few other things on it that I was going to have a look at, and some of them were like manga type stories, which looked quite interesting. And some others I would suggest are just people having a little play with it to see what they could kind of produce. But I thought it looked intriguing enough for me to sort of have a bit more of a play with and see what it actually does. So I was interested in this one. I thought this looked a more novel use of AI than simply generating an image or an animation or a bunch of dialogue. This to me is a little bit more intriguing. But we'll see. And I don't expect you to.
I was trying to be objective when I was thinking about it. It's not for me. It's not for me. I know.
I fully appreciate it's not for you. I think it's but I'm fascinated by what its potential might be. And to me, it makes better sense to use it in this kind of way than it does for some of the other things that we're seeing it used for. in any event, we'll see, no doubt. I'm sure we'll come back to it. So the second one, the second story that I wanted to just sort of touch on, second thing that I wanted to touch on is to do with the pioneers in Second Life and Second Life machinima particularly. I'm going to share with you on our show notes a link to a live panel and audience Q&A recorded at Silver City on the 25th of July this year, which featured Second Life pioneers Phelan Fairchild, Chantel Harvey, Toxic Menges, Petlov Pet Shop, Safia Widdishins, and I think there was others, but those are enough to be kind of going on with. Suffice to say, these are some of the people who have helped establish machinima in Second Life, and they are in this live stream recorded live stream. They're talking about how they first became involved and how a machinima culture grew around Second Life. And what comes through it is that these kind of early creators were not really entering a platform designed principally as a kind of filmmaking package. They recognized that it's kind of avatars, it's user-built sets, it's kind of camera controls and performances and social networks and whatnot could be repurposed into a production environment. And machinima, therefore, emerged through that kind of act of creative misuse, or perhaps a better term might be creative discovery. I think Phelan is a particularly strong example in the discussion. She joined Second Life at the end of 2002, initially becoming involved in community events and virtual world design, and she subsequently taught herself editing and visual effects software when she recognized Second Life's storytelling potential, and her work included the kind of virtual sitcom divas and the mixed reality kind of psychological thriller Harbinger. And something I find important here is that these pioneers were rarely only filmmakers. They were simultaneously writers, performers, camera operators, set builders, costume designers, event organizers, and fundamentally they're also community developers. And that the platform itself did not provide neatly a kind of a neat pipeline for producing machinima. So in effect, what happened was that it's their practice that kind of became what I would describe as extraordinarily hybrid. And I think it'd be fair to say that it's the community dimension really that comes through. I mean, for example, Machinima Mondays was founded in 2009 by Chantel, with Phelan, with Toxic and others that are in this video. And it developed and is continuing today even as a regular space where creators can kind of, screen their work, exchange kind of feedback, share sets and props, and kind of help newcomers acquire the techniques. It's a really vibrant environment that Chantel's managed to keep going. And it's worth noting, of course, that Second Life machinima really complicates the usual idea that machinima is made by capturing action from a game. I mean, it is a game, but it's not a game with the mechanics that we typically understand them to be. Second Life, kind of has no compulsory game or predetermined narrative as such. It's kind of users construct the environments and the identities and the costumes and the performances, and then, often the sort of social institution surrounding the production as well. I mean, it's closer really to a collectively maintained virtual studio system. And because the creators appeared through avatars, their virtual identities could really become the artistic identities they have in their own right. So Phelan, for example, wasn't merely a screen character controlled by an external filmmaker. That avatar became a writer, a director, a performer, and, a recognized cultural figure within the world, as did all of the others. So it's a really interesting discussion to listen to, and it kind of reflects on their emergence as creators through the machinimas that they created and through the skills that they developed and shared. And I think what fascinates me about placing this story, this sort of this live stream video in the context of the other discussion that we've just had about DramaMancer, is that really interestingly, they kind of describe two very different ways that the barriers to virtual storytelling are being lowered or have been lowered. I mean, DramaMancer, for example, tries to reduce the technical and authorial burden through automation. The AI generates narrative material between the kind of points established by the author. And Second Life's pioneers reduce the barrier socially. I mean, people exchanged knowledge, they shared resources, they built communities, and collectively learned how to bend a virtual world towards filmmaking. I think one of these models asks what the machine can take over, and the other really reminds us what becomes possible when creators teach one another. And I think the future really of machinima will probably involve both of these types of models. But I wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want the apparent convenience of the first to kind of make us forget that the cultural achievements of the second are actually really pretty significant in the context of what we're talking about. So there you go. There's another thing to have a look at when you get a minute or two or an hour.
Yeah,
That's it. That's it. That's my news, Damien.
All right. Well, I'm going to be talking about iClone now with my news. I need to preface this by saying I've been having some PC problems. So the things I'm about to talk about, I have not had a chance to try out myself yet, but I'm really looking forward to once I get my desktop back up and running. So first thing is Reallusion were at SIGGRAPH. Again, because of the PC problems, I have not had a chance to catch up on everything they talked about there. And of course, SIGGRAPH has actually happened now from the time of recording. But two of the things that have come out of it is first the RTX renderer, which is something that I've been really looking forward to ever since they teased it earlier this year. Reallusion put out a video saying basically a thing of what's coming to iClone throughout the year. And this is the one that really caught my eye. And I remember Phil talking about it, and he was quite intrigued by this as well. And so the idea is within iClone, they're going to release a free plugin that if you have an NVIDIA RTX card, you can then switch to the RTX renderer within iClone that will let you do ray trace rendering without having to export to NVIDIA Omniverse or some other tool. It's all going to be done within iClone. Now, about a week ago, the open beta was released. You can, as it's an open beta, you can just sign up. It's free, and you can download it and give it a try. They've already released one update to it. Again, not tried it, so I can't say too much about it. When you go into the beta, there's the forum, and they talk about some of the features they are not working yet. But from the way they describe it, it sounds like they are going to be added, but they're just not ready yet. Mm. Things like the particle effect system that is built into iClone. That's something I'm quite excited about because since I've been rendering with NVIDIA Omniverse, those particle effects do not transfer over either. So I've had to use an Omniverse particle effects within my projects. And some of them are really difficult to get set up, whereas I really miss the iClone ones, which are a lot more straightforward, but still look really good. So that was something that they're aware of. Doesn't work yet with the RTX plugin, but I think they're going to add it, which would be really good for me because I want these easy explosions and not necessarily weapon that gets fired because with Star Wars, you see all the lasers flying around. It's not like a modern day stuff, we don't necessarily have to show the bullets flying because they're moving so fast that it doesn't matter if you can't see them because you wouldn't anyway. But with something like lasers, you need to see them. And the only way to do it is to manually do every single shot. And the big battles, that takes quite some time to do. And, I'm looking forward to having that back again. Also, the other thing about the built-in like laser weapon shots, it does the impacts for you as well. So when it hits something, you get a little debris thing, it appears on the object and debris shoots out and there's a little bullet hole. And I miss having that without having to do it myself. So I really hope that Reallusion do add that back in and quickly. There's a list of other things coming that similar things where they're aware they're not working yet, but they're working on it. The update added made a few things a little bit more streamlined from the notes, like a read through it, some bug fixing, as you'd expect an update to have. But yeah, I'm really excited to try this one once my PC is fixed and I can download and install it. And it'll be interesting to see what Phil has to say about it when he, again, is able to try it out and see what he can do with it. So I do remember him saying that was the one thing that he was really looking forward to most out of all the teasers that he did.
Brilliant. And do you use AccuFACE as well?
AccuFACE, I use AccuFACE 1, and so AccuFACE 2 is the new one. Again, I've not had a chance to try it out or even have a proper read of all the new features yet. It's very useful. The AccuFACE 1 being able to do the facial motion capture from video. My understanding is they've changed that so it will, if you're doing full body video motion capture, it will read your face when you're doing that. And so that can be useful or not, depending on how close you are to the camera and how good your camera is at picking up that kind of level of detail. And you're just doing your body, you don't necessarily have to have high quality footage. It has to be able to see the body, like your legs, arms, and what you're doing has to be visible. So if anyone's watching this video now of me talking, see my arms moving around in my head, can't see my legs, so that'd be useless. And you can't wear a skirt or a dress because, again, legs need to be visible. So you have to be wearing trousers or shorts or something like that. As long as it can get an idea of what your body looks like, it can do it. So it's the same with the face. If it can't see your face properly, you're going to get some very interesting results. So what I do is, my approach to using AccuFACE 1 is to animate the scene and have all the characters animated and moving around, which I've done the full body motion capture either through the video or through the suit I have. And then I will place the camera to, just get an idea of where I want the camera to be and all that. I will then make it full screen, and then I will hold my phone up like this. So my face is pretty much like that.
Yeah. And
then I will act out the scene on my face for each character. So, looking, characters something's happening over there, so I'll look over there or do that. But you have to be very subtle with it, because if you do that, it's not visible. So just tiny little movements like this, they have really dramatic impact on the characters, because you feel like you're not really doing anything, but it makes the character move a lot more than you think it's going to move. Also, what I like to do is have my headphones on and I can listen to the dialogue in the scene playing out. And then I can either say it myself, trying to match the tone of the recording, or just mime it, which doesn't necessarily work quite as well. But then it will capture your mouth movement and all the facial detail of little ticks and things in a way that when I first started, I wasn't doing the mouth movement because iClone really does the lip sync and it does that really well. So I was just doing eye movement, eyebrows, and stuff like that. But then I realized it wasn't capturing anything down here because I wasn't doing anything down here. And you don't necessarily think about it until you try it and actually think, oh, there's a lot more happening than you
Yeah.
realize. So you do need to actually save the lines.
Yeah, all the muscles are connected and all the
Yeah. So it's fascinating learning how all of that works.
Mm.
So hopefully this new AccuFACE 2 is like that, but more powerful. Because obviously iClone have improved the character models since AccuFACE 1. So there's a lot more options for facial animation. And so they need to kind of catch up with the facial motion capture technology to fully take advantage of that as well.
Yeah, it certainly sounds quite sophisticated stuff.
Yeah. So again, once I get my PC up and running again, I'll try that out as well because it's a very useful tool.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, that's it then for this month.
So only a short news segment, but
well,
it's important news. It's important news for the iClone and AI followers.
Yeah.
Of course, one other thing I will say is this news came out not long after we finished recording our last news segment, and Reallusion seemed to know when we do that and make some other announcements that we weren't able to cover because we didn't know about them until 2 days later.
Yes, indeed.
So again, I wonder what they're going to announce this week coming.
No doubt there'll be stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that wraps up the news for this month. So again, from me and Tracy, thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
I hope Ricky and Phil are enjoying the Halo campaign relaunch or whatever they call it.
Yep.
And we'll be back next month with some more films and maybe some more news. So we'll see how that goes.
Lovely. Great to see you, Damien. Take care.
Bye.